Welcome to the story. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and support me. The battle had been raging for hours, the city skyline glowing faintly under the dark clouds that swirled above New York. Deadpool, guns blazing, weaved through the rubble with his usual flair, cracking jokes that echoed through the empty street. He slid behind a crumbled piece of what used to be an office building, peeking over to see Scarlet Witch Wanda Maximoff floating gracefully above the chaos. Red tendrils of energy spiraled from her fingers, holding back a wave of magical fire launched by the rogue scientists holed up in what was left of the Stark Industries tower. "Hey, Wanda, I think they were getting tired of us," Deadpool shouted, flipping his katanas in each hand, preparing to charge. Wanda's eyes narrowed as she focused on the swirling energy in front of her. "Stay focused. Wait, this isn't just another random attack. They were trying to harness something bigger." Deadpool shrugged, a smile spreading beneath his mask. "Oh, come on, how bad can it be?" Before Wanda could respond, the sky seemed to ripple, a low hum vibrating through the air. It was as if the very fabric of reality was shifting, groaning under some unseen force. Her heart dropped, recognizing the sensation all too well, a chaotic pulse, like nothing she had ever felt before. It wasn't just a spell, it was something ancient, something dangerous. "Wait, get back," she yelled, her voice tight with urgency. Something saw coming. But Deadpool, being Deadpool, wasn't the type to listen. With a cackle, he charged forward, launching himself into the fray, just as the pulse of energy exploded from the center of the city. The wave hit them like a freight train. For a brief moment, everything went white. Wanda's magic faltered, her energy flickering out as she tumbled to the ground. Deadpool, caught mid-leap, was flung backward, crashing into a nearby car with enough force to crumple the metal. For several long seconds, the world was silent. The only sound was the crackling of fires scattered throughout the city. Wanda blinked, trying to clear the daze from her mind as she struggled to her feet. She instinctively reached for her magic, but something was wrong. The usual flow of energy, the comforting hum of power that always coursed through her, was gone. Her breath caught in her throat, her powers were gone. "Wait," she called out, panic creeping into her voice. A groan from behind a pile of rubble answered her. Deadpool stood up, shaking his head, adjusting his mask. "Well, that was fun. Let's never do it again." He paused, glancing at his hands. "Oh boy, I think I got a little upgrade." Wanda's gaze snapped to him and her eyes widened. Deadpool's skin, which had always been marred by the scars of his accelerated healing, now glowed faintly, his veins pulsing with an eerie red light. He flexed his fingers and the pavement under his feet cracked slightly from the sheer pressure. Wanda, is it just me, or did I level up?" Wanda took a step back, her heart racing. "This isn't right. Something's happened. I feel my power." Deadpool blinked. "When you're normal now? I didn't think that was possible." Her mind raced, trying to make sense of it all. Whatever that pulse was, it hadn't just affected her. It had reversed something fundamental in the fabric of their reality. Mutants across the world were losing their abilities, but Deadpool, his regenerative powers were amplified dangerously so. And if he was affected, that meant this wasn't just a localized event. "We need to figure out what caused this," Wanda said, her voice steadying despite the fear growing at her. "If we don't, you might not be the only one losing control." Deadpool cracked his neck. "Control so overrated. But yeah, this feels weird, not in the fun way." Wanda nodded, her mind racing. "Doctor Strange, he might know what's going on." Without waiting for Deadpool's sarcastic response, Wanda turned, hurrying toward the Sanctum Sanctorum. The streets were eerily quiet as they made their way through the city. The usual hustle and bustle of New York was replaced by a strange, oppressive stillness. As they passed a group of mutants huddled in an alley, Wanda felt a pang of guilt. They looked lost, disoriented, their powers stripped away, just like hers. Deadpool noticed her glance and gave a rare moment of sympathy. "We'll fix this. You the magic guru, right? We just gotta figure out which magic rabbit hole we fell down." But even Deadpool's humor felt strained. He could sense something far more sinister lurking beneath the surface of their predicament. And for once, he wasn't sure if he liked the idea of being the one with too much power. When they arrived at the sanctum, the doors were already open, a faint trail of smoke drifting out. Wanda's stomach churned with unease. She had expected Strange to be here to have answered. But as they stepped inside, the once grand and mystical space was in shambles. Books were scattered across the floor, relics cracked, and the air itself seemed heavier, thick with residual magic. Strange, Wanda called out, her voice echoing through the empty hall. Deadpool glanced around, kicking a broken vase. Guess he's not home. Before Wanda could respond, a soft groan came from the far side of the room. She rushed over, finding Dr. Strange slumped against the wall, his once powerful form drained, his hands trembling, as if he had been fighting something beyond his control. "Wanda?" His voice was weak, barely a whisper. Wanda knelt beside him, her hand trembling as she reached out. "What happened? What did you see?" Strange shook his head slowly, struggling to focus. A tear in the fabric of magic, something ancient, something hungry. It's feeding on chaos. Deadpool, leaning against a pillar, crossed his arms. "Sounds like a fun party. So how do we stop it?" Strange's eyes flickered toward Deadpool, and for a moment, a shadow of fear crossed his face. "You were the key. Whatever this entity is, it's drawn to you. Your chaotic energy. It's amplifying everything." Wanda's heart sank. If Deadpool was the focal point, that meant they were already in more danger than she realized. "We need to find the source," Strange continued, his voice barely audible. "The entity it's saying called the Weaver. It's saying you're unraveling the threads of reality, starting with magic. If you don't stop it, there won't be anything left to revert." Wanda's mind raced. The Weaver, she had read about it once, an ancient being that thrived on chaos, consuming the balance of magic to feed its own power. It was drawn to disruption, to instability, and Deadpool, with his unpredictable nature, was the perfect conduit for it. "We'll stop it," Wanda said firmly, standing up, "but we need to know where to start." Strange weakly lifted his hand, pointing to a shimmering portal near the back of the room. It's had already started warping reality. The portal, it leads to the source. "But be careful, the Weaver sash realm, it twists your mind. It'll try to break you before you even reach it." Deadpool tilted his head. "Twist your mind. Sweet. I've already got a head start on that." But there was no humor in his voice. Now Wanda could see the tension in his posture, the way his eyes flickered with uncertainty. The Weaver was feeding off him, and the longer they waited, the more dangerous it would become. "Let's go," Wanda said, her voice steady. "We don't all have time to wait." Deadpool nodded, and together they stepped toward the portal, the air around them crackling with anticipation. Wanda felt a cold dread settle in her chest as the swirling energy enveloped them, pulling them into the unknown. The world shifted around them, colors blending and distorting as they were transported to the Weaver Palcurel. It was a place of chaos, where gravity shifted unpredictably and the sky bled into the ground in twisted, nonsensical patterns. Buildings floated in midair, trees grew upside down, and the very air seemed to pulse with unstable magic. Wanda took a deep breath, trying to steady herself. "Stay close," she warned. "This place isn't bound by the same rules. It's going to try to tear us apart." Deadpool for once was silent, his eyes scanning the landscape with uncharacteristic seriousness. Whatever lay ahead, they both knew this was only the beginning. The Weaver was waiting, and the closer they got, the more the fabric of reality would unravel. The moment they stepped into the Weaver-set realm, Wanda could feel the oppressive weight of chaos pressing in on her mind. Every step she took was met with resistance, as if reality itself was stretching and contracting, trying to pull her apart. Deadpool walked beside her, his usual swagger muted, his eyes darting across the warped landscape. They passed floating chunks of rock and twisted fragments of building. The sky was a sickly green, swirling like a storm that never broke. Gravity shifted randomly, forcing them to leap or float in different directions. Each moment felt as if the ground beneath them could collapse into nothingness. Yet there was a strange beauty in the chaos, the colors and shapes constantly morphing, like a dream that couldn't decide what it wanted to be. "This place gives me the creeps," Deadpool muttered, glancing at a building that appeared to fold in on itself like paper. It sounded like someone took a Picasso painting and threw it in a blender. Wanda focused on the energy pulling at her. She could feel it now stronger than ever. The Weaver was close, and its influence was growing. She could sense the delicate threads of magic. It was unraveling, fraying the boundaries between order and chaos. And Deadpool, his chaotic energy, was like a beacon pulling them deeper into the heart of the Weaver. "Sandome. Stay focused," she said, her voice sharp. "The Weaver will try to disorient us, break us down. We need to keep moving." Deadpool grunted in response. His face, usually full of snark and humor, was tight with concentration. Wanda could see the strain in his eyes. The amplified power was weighing on him, pulling at his sanity. He had always been able to joke his way through the worst situations, but this time it felt different. As they moved deeper into the realm, the landscape shifted again. The floating debris morphed into jagged spires of glass, towering over them like monstrous teeth. Shadows flickered at the edges of Wanda's side vision, strange, amorphous shapes that moved too fast to be seen clearly. Hey, Wanda, Deadpool's safe voice was unusually soft, almost hesitant. Do you ever get the feeling that we're not alone here? Wanda's skin prickled. She had felt it too. Something was watching them. The Weaver wasn't just an abstract force. It was here, lurking in the shadows, waiting for the right moment to strike. We're close, Wanda replied, her voice steady. Just keep going. Down. Yeah, get to you. But as they pressed forward, the pressure on her mind grew stronger. The Weaver Said's presence was everywhere now, seeping into the very air they breathed. Wanda could feel her thoughts slipping, the boundaries between reality and illusion blurring. A sudden, sharp laugh cut through the silence. It was Deadpool, but it wasn't a residual laugh. It was darker, more manic. Wanda turned to see him standing still, his head tilted to one side, his eyes wide and wild. Oh, this is just perfect, Deadpool said, his voice laced with something darker than humor. I think I'm starting to like this place. It's got a certain charm. Wanda's heart skipped a beat. The Weaver was getting to him. His powers were amplifying the chaos within him, warping his mind. She reached out, grabbing his arm. Wade, snap out of it. She said, her voice firm. This isn't too real, it sent the Weaver, messing with your head. Deadpool blinked, his gaze shifting to her for a moment. He looked like himself again, but there was something in his eyes, something fractured. I know, he said softly, his voice almost a whisper, but it sounds hard to fight it. Wanda, it sounds so loud. Wanda tightened her grip on his arm, pulling him closer. I need you to focus. I need you to be here with me. Deadpool swallowed hard, his breath coming in short, sharp bursts. But he nodded, the wildness in his eyes fading slightly. Okay, I am with you, for now. They continued walking, but the tension between them was palpable. Wanda could feel the Weaver closing in, tightening its grip on Deadpool's mind. Every step was a battle, not just against the shifting landscape, but against the chaos inside them. Finally, they reached the heart of the Weaver Saw's realm. It was a massive, swirling vortex of energy suspended in the air like a black hole. Tendrils of pure chaos radiated out from it, warping the space around them, and at the center of it all, the Weaver stood. It was a towering, monstrous figure, its body made of writhing, shadowy tendrils. Its face was featureless, but Wanda could feel its gaze on her, cold and calculating. The Weaver did speak, but its presence was overwhelming, pressing down on her like a weight she couldn't escape. Deadpool's breath hitched beside her, and she knew that he was feeling it too. Well, Deadpool said, his voice trembling with manic energy. Look who decided to show up. You re the big bad, huh? The Weaver's tendrils twitched, but it didn't respond. Instead, the vortex behind it pulsed, sending a wave of chaotic energy crashing toward them. Wanda threw up a shield instinctively, but without her powers, it flickered and shattered almost instantly. Deadpool, his amplified powers surging, stepped forward, his hands crackling with raw energy. Looks like it's my turn to play the hero. But Wanda could see the strain on his face. He was already on the edge, his powers tearing him apart from the inside. If he unleashed that energy, it could destroy everything, including himself. Wade, Wanda called out, but it was too late. Deadpool launched himself at the Weaver, his body a blur of motion. He struck with a fury she had never seen before. His amplified strength tearing through the Weaver sent tendrils like paper. But the more he fought, the more the Weaver's energy wrapped around him, feeding off his chaos. Wanda could feel it. The Weaver was using Deadpool as a conduit, drawing more and more power from him. If this kept up, Deadpool would be consumed. She had to act, but without her magic, she was powerless. Desperation clawed at her. As she watched Deadpool struggle against the Weaver, scream. Then a thought struck her. The Weaver thrived on chaos, on instability. But what if she could disrupt its connection to Deadpool? Wanda took a deep breath, focusing on the energy around her. Even without her powers, she still had her knowledge of magic, her understanding of the threads that bound reality together. "Wade," she shouted, her voice cutting through the noise of battle. "You need to focus. You were not just fighting the weaver, you were feeding it." Deadpool paused, his body trembling with the effort. "Feeding it. Great I am, the buffet net." "You were stronger than it," Wanda continued, her voice steady. "But you need to control it. Don't you let the chaos take over." For a moment, Deadpool seemed to hesitate, then, slowly, he pulled back, the wild energy around him dimming slightly. The weaver's grip loosened, and for the first time, it seemed to falter. Wanda seized the opportunity. She reached out, mentally weaving the strands of reality around them. Without her powers, it was a delicate process, but she knew the patterns, the rhythms of magic. She could still feel them, even if she couldn't control them directly. She focused on the threads connecting Deadpool to the weaver, visualizing them as thin, fragile lines of energy. With a mental tug, she severed one of the threads. The weaver recoiled, its tendrils thrashing wildly. Deadpool staggered back, his breathing ragged, but the chaotic energy around him had diminished. "It's unworking," Wanda muttered to herself, her mind racing. If she could sever the rest of the connections, they might have a chance. But the weaver wasn't going to make it easy. With a deafening roar, it lunged at them, its massive form crashing down like a tidal wave of darkness. Deadpool, regaining some of his composure, threw himself in front of Wanda, his body glowing with raw power. "Time to turn this thing off," he muttered, his voice strained but determined. Wanda watched in horror as Deadpool charged the weaver again, his fists glowing with chaotic energy. He wasn't just fighting the creature anymore, he was absorbing its power, pulling it into himself. The weaver howled in fury, but Deadpool's chaotic nature made him a perfect vessel for its energy. "No," Wanda shouted, reaching out to stop him, but she was too late. Deadpool's same body convulsed as the weaver's energy flooded into him. His screams echoed through the warped landscape, and Wanda's heart clenched with fear. But then with a final deafening crack, the weaver's form shattered. The vortex of chaos collapsed in on itself, and for a brief moment, everything was still. Wanda stood, frozen, her breath caught in her throat as she stared at the spot where Deadpool had been. The weaver was gone, its influence shattered, but so was Deadpool. The silence that followed was deafening. Then from the rubble, a groan. Wanda's heart leaped as Deadpool's familiar voice broke the stillness. "Okay, that hurt a lot." She rushed over to him, relief flooding through her ass. She saw him battered but alive. His powers had returned to normal. The chaotic energy that had threatened to consume him finally dissipated. Wanda knelt beside him, her chest heaving with emotion. "He's okay." Deadpool grinned weakly, his usual humor creeping back into his voice to fine. "Okay, but yeah, I am not dead, so when..." Wanda couldn't help but laugh, tears pricking her eyes. "Yeah, wait." As they stood together in the now quiet realm, Wanda couldn't shake the feeling that this wasn't to the end. The weaver might have been defeated, but chaos was a force that never truly went away. It would always linger, waiting for the next opportunity to unravel reality. But for now, they had one, and that was enough.